The Demolitionist is the heavy hitter of the team. With their high explosive arsenal, they can destroy any large Zed in their way. So let's take a look at their starting gear and weapons. The Demolitionist starts out with the HX-25 pistol, the 9mm pistol, the utility knife, and dynamite. The HX-25 grenade pistol weighs 4 pounds and costs $300. The grenade pistol shoots out 7 pellets, each of which do 10 damage on impact, as well as 30 damage on explosion. The grenade pistol can do about 131 damage per second. That's not including any AoE explosive damage that you might rack up. The HX-25 also has the handy ability of not being able to damage the user. Overall, the grenade pistol is a pretty solid gun, and is sometimes considered somewhat mediocre, but with its handy ability of never hurting you and being able to use it in tight crowds is pretty handy. Its 4 pounds of weight though can be kind of a pain to fit into another arsenal though, and I tend to sell it pretty early on. The Demolitionist dynamite does 300 damage per stick. Sticks will go off immediately if they hit a target directly. If they don't, then they have to sit on the ground and wait, and they have the longest fuse time out of any of the explosives. Overall, dynamite is extremely useful, having high damage, a pretty large blast radius, and having really high chance to stun or stumble targets. You can use it against large Zeds, large waves of Zeds, or just individual Zeds that are close to you to get them off of you. You will take damage from dynamite if it goes off near you though, so be careful of that. The utility knife and the 9mm are extremely useful for the Demolitionist, as the HX-25 grenade pistol usually won't suffice at the higher levels on the higher difficulties, so you'll have to resort to using your knife and your pistol. So getting used to melee bashing with the grenade pistol or with the 9mm pistol and attacking with the knife is going to be key to be useful as the Demolitionist at higher levels. So now that we've looked at the starting gear, let's go on to the demo's weapons. First weapon the demo can buy is C4. C4 weighs 3 pounds and costs $650. C4 does 820 damage. It's hard to calculate damage per second with C4, as it would be different if you were counting it by throwing it and exploding it, or by placing it on the ground and then exploding multiples. C4 does stick to anything that you stick it to, including walls or enemies, but if you have multiple C4s on the same target or near the same target, the target will take reduced damage for each C4 that is exploded. Overall, C4 is pretty fun. It's definitely probably the funnest weapon that the demo has and one of the funnest weapons in the game, but I find myself not taking it as much with demo as I do with other classes just to fit in with their high explosive damage, since demo kind of already has that covered. Up next is the M79 grenade launcher. The M79 weighs 6 pounds and costs $650. With the grenade shot, it can do 150 damage, and then on the grenade explosion, it does 225 damage, making for about 138 damage per second. This is only if you hit one target, which is fairly unlikely as the grenade launcher has a very large blast radius. The grenade launcher's grenades will also not go off if they don't reach a certain distance. Overall, I really like the grenade launcher. It's really good for killing lots of smaller and medium Zeds without much trouble, as well as you can use it against larger Zeds like Flesh Pounds to pretty decent effect. Overall, it's a pretty solid weapon, definitely good for crowd control if your team can keep smaller Zeds off of you, and you can have some distance to make sure the explosions go off. The next weapon in the demo's arsenal is the M16. The M16 weighs 6 pounds and costs $1,200. In its assault rifle mode, the M16 can do 30 damage per shot and 349 damage per second. With its grenade launcher, it can do 225 damage on impact and then an additional 225 damage on explosion, making for about 270 damage per second with the grenade launcher. Overall, I find the M16 to be rather average, and even though I do take it quite a lot with the demo, it is certainly a better weapon for the commando. The M16 does have the added advantage of having a good way to clear small Zeds, as well as the grenade launcher being pretty good at clearing medium Zeds. Next weapon we're going to be talking about is the pulverizer. The pulverizer weighs 6 pounds and costs $1,200. With its light attack, it can do 70 damage. With its heavy attack, without any ammo in it, it can do 145 damage. And then with its heavy attack being loaded with its shotgun shells, it can do 383 damage per hit. With its explosive hits, it can do about 351 damage per second. The pulverizer definitely isn't the best weapon for the demo, as you have to get close to use it, but it does give you a massive amount of damage, as well as it does give you the ability to block some hits. I don't see the pulverizer being taken very often with demos. It's much better as a berserker weapon, but if you can reliably block with it and use it just for larger Zeds like flesh pounds, you can kill them fairly quickly and use light attacks to clear up any smaller enemies. The next weapon in the demo's arsenal is the RPG-7. It weighs 9 pounds and costs $1,500. The RPG-7 does 150 damage on impact and then 750 explosive damage, making for about 300 damage per second. The rocket launcher also has another interesting fire mode, which is the back blast from the gun, meaning anything directly behind you will take 150 damage from the blast back when you fire a rocket. The rockets, just like the grenade launcher rounds, have to travel a certain distance in order for them to explode. The rocket launcher is the most damaging weapon in the game at the moment, and is widely picked by most demos just for doing huge amounts of damage to large enemies. You can easily kill flesh pounds and skrakes with this. Note that skrakes do take reduced damage from explosions, but they will take massively increased damage from the RPG rocket actually hitting them. And this applies to any distance, whether the rocket explodes or not. Overall, I really like the RPG. It's a lot of fun to use, as well as it's great for killing larger Zeds. The final weapon in the demo's arsenal for the moment is the Seeker 6. The Seeker 6 weighs 9 pounds and costs $1,500. The Seeker 6 can do 100 damage per shot on impact and an additional 125 explosive damage, meaning that the Seeker 6 can do about 750 damage per second. The Seeker 6 also has the unique ability of being able to fire individual rockets as you normally would, or lock-on mode, which can lock on to multiple targets as for how many rockets you have. You can also fire from the hip even when it's on lock-on mode, and it will still function the same as if it's not on lock-on mode. The Seeker 6 can do a lot of damage per second and is pretty good for cleaning up smaller enemies. The main thing that you use it for, though, is to exploit the Destroyer of Worlds perk and have a large amount of damage per second done to enemies. This is especially effective against smaller and medium Zeds, as it will kill them extremely quickly. Overall, the Seeker isn't a bad weapon. I find it pretty fun to use, especially if you combine it with the dynamite. Then you can have the absolute most amount of damage per second, as well as pretty steady damage against any of the larger Zeds like skrakes or flesh pounds. And with its lock-on mode, it is extremely user-friendly. It also has a very low amount of damage that it can do to the user, and it's somewhat difficult to actually damage yourself with this gun. Alright, let's look at the passive perks that the demo has. The demo gets bonus perk weapon damage, 1% per level, up to 25% max. Explosive resistance, 2% per level, plus 10% base, up to 50% max. Extra explosive ammo, 1 per 5 levels, up to 5 extra ammo. Grenade supplier, which is the ability to supply a single grenade to your teammate when they interact with you. The ability to set up door traps, which is adding a explosive trap to a door when welding it that will explode and deal damage to all enemies around it. And then reactive armor. Reactive armor allows you to survive one hit that would kill you once per wave. So if you were to get hit by something that would kill you, it would drop you to 5 points and then go off. But then any additional attacks after that would still count as full damage and could easily kill you afterwards. Alright, now that we've looked at the demo's weapons, starting gear, and passive perks, let's take a look at some demo builds and loadouts. The first demo build we're going to be talking about is the heavy hitter demo build. This is going for full damage. At level 5, you can pick between Bombardier and Shock Trooper. In this build, we're going to be going with Bombardier, as the bonus damage is just too useful. Shock Trooper is quite useful though, as it gives you the increased knockdown power and stumble power, as well as the much faster reload with all your weapons, which is useful because you're going to be reloading your weapons a lot. But Bombardier is just so much more damage that it sometimes seems like overkill. At level 5, we have our choices between high impact rounds and extra rounds. For the heavy hitter build, we're going to go high impact rounds, as this will just give you even more explosive damage. At 15, you can pick between sonic resist rounds and fragmentation rounds. Sonic resist rounds is definitely the better pick for the heavy hitter build, as making sirens no longer a threat to you is extremely useful, and fragmentation rounds would just decrease your damage, which is not what we want with the heavy hitter build. At 20, you can pick between armor piercing rounds and concussive rounds. I would say go with armor piercing rounds, as this allows you to do even more damage with your gun. Concussive rounds is still pretty good too though, as it increases all the stumble, knockdown, all that fun stuff. So at 25, you have your choices between Destroyer of Worlds and Mad Bomber. For the heavy hitter one, we're definitely going with Destroyer of Worlds, As Destroyer of Worlds, whenever you're in Z time and an explosion goes off, it makes a nuclear cloud around an area that poisons all Zeds that walk through it. This is extremely useful as the nuclear cloud persists after the Z time is ended, and will continue to do damage to all enemies that walk through it. So this allows you to do more damage over time, as well as more damage to smaller enemies and create choke points for them. Mad Bomber, on the other hand, allows you to shoot faster and reload faster when in Z time, as well as all of your weapons have a larger area of effect with their explosion. Mad Bomber is still quite useful and could potentially be even higher damaging than Destroyer of Worlds, but Destroyer of Worlds generally comes in more handy than Mad Bomber in most circumstances. With the heavy hitter build, you can deal a lot of damage to very large enemies. You can one-shot a Scrag with a rocket launcher on any difficulty with any amount of people. You can 1 to 2 shot a Flesh Pound on any difficulty with any amount of people as well. So the second build we're going to be looking at is somebody who wants to have more damage per second, and this is more the fast shooter, somewhat crowd control type of build, but it can still do quite well against larger enemies. So first off, you're going to pick Shock Trooper, as you want to just shoot faster. You're not as concerned with dealing more damage, although Bombardier is a good choice too if you want that. At level 10, you're going to go extra rounds to get bonus ammo so that you can continue to shoot quicker. At 15, you're going to go Sonic Resist rounds, because just having Sirens not ruin your explosives is just going to be so useful to you. At 20, you're going to go for Concussive rounds, as it allows you to stun a lot of smaller enemies as well as stun bigger enemies so that you can keep following up with your rapid attacks. And then at 25, you're going to go Destroyer of Worlds, simply because in most cases it's going to be more useful than Mad Bomber. Overall, this build is better suited to somebody who isn't extremely accurate and just wants to deal a lot of damage and still be useful to the team. So if you can't hit direct shots or can't hit direct critical shots on enemies, then this one's going to be probably more useful, because you can just shoot at the ground, shoot in the general area of the enemies to deal with them. And then the third build we have here is the Trash Control Demo. So at level 5, you're going to pick either Bombardier or Shock Trooper, it's your call. At level 10, you're definitely going to pick Explosive rounds, as it will just allow you to kill more small enemies. At level 15, you're going to go with Fragmentation rounds, and this is the main reason why I said pick between Bombardier or Shock Trooper. Shock Trooper, if you're not as concerned with the amount of damage you're dealing, you just want to kill all the little ones. Bombardier, if you still want to have damage and can deal with medium and larger Zeds, as the Fragmentation rounds will decrease your damage, and then Bombardier just kind of evens it out. At 20, you're going to go with Concussive rounds, as it just allows you to stun more enemies, so this will help since you're not building high amounts of damage to kill larger Zeds, so you can stun them easier. And then finally at 25, it's your choice between Destroyer of Worlds or Mad Bomber. As Mad Bomber, you can deal a lot more damage to a lot more enemies faster, but Destroyer of Worlds will allow you to save on munitions cost. Overall, I don't find this build being used very often, especially at higher levels, since demos usually just want to kill big things and then leave all the small things for crowd control oriented classes like the Commando, the Firebug, or the SWAT. Alright, so let's take a look at some loadouts. The first loadout for the demo is the most common loadout, going with the RPG-7 and then your choice of the M16 or the M79 grenade launcher. You use the RPG to kill any large enemies, and then you use the M16 or the grenade launcher to deal with medium and smaller Zeds. Typically you go with the M16 if you don't feel like your team can accurately protect you, or if your team is just in an unfavorable position to where Zeds can get to you easily. The M16 will allow you to kill off small Zeds very quickly. The grenade launcher, on the other hand, is what you take when you feel like your team can adequately protect you, where you can just deal more damage to more enemies with the grenade launcher than you could with the M16. The next build is more along the lines of a heavy hitter build, which is going the RPG-7 to deal with larger enemies, C4 to also deal with large enemies, and the 500 Magnum. This will allow you to have an extremely high amount of damage. The main problem with going with this build, though, is that you have really no way of dealing with small Zeds or dealing with crowds of Zeds besides just throwing C4 or throwing dynamite into them, because you usually don't want to waste your rockets on it. The third build is more of a damage per second build, going with the Seeker 6 as your primary weapon that you'll use to deal with most enemies, and then your choice between 500 magnums, the center fire, the double barrel. Combining this with your dynamite, you can have an extremely high amount of damage per second using any of these weapons. And then the final loadout is more of a trash control loadout, which is going the grenade launcher, C4, and then your choice of any other weapons. You could go with a P90, you could go with a double barrel, center fire, whatever you want. Alright, so let's get on to some demo tips. The first tip for demo is jump around a lot. This gives you distance that your explosions are more likely to go off. This is most useful with like the grenade launcher or the rocket launcher. It won't be affecting the M16, the pulverizer, or the grenade pistol nearly as much, or the C4. The second tip for demo is stay near the team. You're very squishy as the demo, and you're in charge of doing high amounts of damage to enemies. So you don't want to be wandering off and dying, as that leaves your team at a disadvantage for any large enemies. Be sure that you stay close to them and use your weapons wisely to deal with medium and larger Zeds, and then occasionally killing smaller Zeds when it's needed. The third tip is that you can use door traps to get you a lot of bonus cash early. Make sure you do this, and if you got a support, it's even better, as support will give you not only bonus ammo, which is really useful because your ammo costs a lot, but they can also fix the doors so that you can weld traps up again, so if the doors do break, the traps will go off and deal high amounts of damage to all enemies, as it's essentially just a lot of cash for killing small Zeds with a trap that you just need to set up and don't need to bother with, and it's free. The fourth tip is use your dynamite a lot. Even though it's very easy to damage yourself with dynamite, it's extremely useful as it can be used as a follow-up attack to flesh pounds or scrakes that you might not kill with one shot, and it can be used to clear out a lot of smaller Zeds that might be swarming you like crawlers or stalkers. And then the fifth tip is don't look at explosions that you know will kill. There's no point in watching the grenade fly all the way to a crawler and have it blow up just for you to kill one crawler. If you're going to do that, then that's fine, but be sure to be looking around as after you fired your shot. Still want to be alerted to anything that's coming near you that might be trying to grab you or deal high amounts of damage to you. So overall, the demo is a very high damaging class, but is susceptible to quite a few things. Having limited ammo, having expensive ammo, as well as sirens can really mess you up in the early levels until you hit level 15 when you can get the sonic resist rounds, and they're not as big a problem. But with all the demo faults, they still do an extremely high amount of damage. They are the best class for dealing with flesh pounds, and with their explosive door traps, they can hold areas extremely well if your team is coordinated. So this was my guide on the demo. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys join me next time where we're going to be looking at the firebug. Okay guys, so this is just kind of a bonus clip that I somewhat had. I actually wasn't recording for anything in particular. I actually didn't plan on recording this at all, but it was just kind of a weird event where when I was playing demo, somehow I managed to get 2 abominations to spawn, and the ending is quite surprising. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and I hope you guys have a great day. I hope to see you all next time. Bye.